I'll do a quick introduction as we're trying to pull up slides. I have been working with Dr. David Nolan. I've known him for a very long time in my career. We first met when he was at Cargill in the swine production system, and I worked for the University of Arkansas. So we had a close relationship back then from the standpoint Cargill supplied the university with their gilts. So I had the opportunity to work with David and his team. And as he told me throughout his career at Cargill, I think he did about just every job you can imagine in that system, in production and managing teams and different things. And then since then, left Cargill Animal Nutrition and is now at Houvie Pharma as a technical service manager and veterinarian. I think one thing I can instill in David is he loves his grandchildren, and I think that's his hobby mostly. So that's always appreciative, and he's a great friend and colleague out there. Dr. Sara Hough is now with DSM Nutritional Products. I met her while we worked together at DSM. She joined about a year ago, and I had the privilege of interviewing her and selecting her to be our technical service manager on the veterinarian side at DSM. And since then, her love for, I think, mentoring comes out in her personality. She's very active in mentoring veterinarians, I would say, as they come out of North Carolina State University and things, and involved with helping younger veterinarians in the system, but with her time at Prestige, a very well understanding of being a production veterinarian as well as Dr. Nolan. So really some good experiences for both of them as they bring to the table for, working in the production systems as a veterinarian, and how their careers evolve now to working as a technical service manager. And I'm going to start with, do we want to throw a coin of who kind of starts and gives a background of their career and how you've ended up where you are?
I'll let Dr. Nolan first.
It landed tails, Sara.
All right, I will start then. So Sara Hough, as Casey mentioned, was with Prestige Farms after graduating from North Carolina State University in 2011, and went into production after I graduated. Had a lot of interesting route to get to that point. Did not go to undergrad anticipating I would be a swine production veterinarian 8 years later, but met a lot of wonderful folks along the way at the university and within the production systems located in North Carolina, and just fell in love with the industry and wanted to support it the best I could. Did a lot of really interesting things, worked at Rollins Animal Disease Diagnostic Laboratory. I rode with various vets throughout North Carolina. One in particular would be Randy Jones with Livestock Veterinary Services. So he didn't just look at pigs, but that's majority of what his work surrounds. So got to see some interesting cases with him and other species as well. Did some internships with Hanor, Elanco, even dove into the One Health strategy and did an externship with Wake Forest University in their primate division. Worked with the late Dr. Monty McCall at NC State, who kind of developed the McRebel system as we know it. Even went abroad and spent some time in France with a veterinarian and learned about production in France and veterinary medicine in general. Did various other things while I was in school that kind of shaped me into wanting to be a swine veterinarian, and just luckily landed a job right here in North Carolina and worked with the Prestige family for 8 years. A wonderful experience, 180,000 sows located in 6 different states. So production was kind of spread out, required me to travel, required me to have a lot of different licenses. But it also introduced me to some wonderful people that I still consider colleagues and friends. So then moved on, transitioned into DSM, like Casey mentioned, about a year ago. It was just one of those opportunities I could not pass up. Loved production, loved the fast pace of it, loved the challenges that came with it, but knew, maybe 10 to 15 years, I might look for something different, a different challenge. So this was a little premature, but just a great experience to come work with this, my awesome team, and with this very intriguing company, and it is very much a challenge. Currently taking, Casey has a short course in swine research, which has been very eye-opening. I'm taking a short course in nutrition as well as a college level course in nutrition right now, just trying to catch up. So kind of being shovel fed a lot of information right now from, feeding from the fire hose, as they say. But it's been really great. I've been welcomed by my colleagues in the nutrition world, and just trying to understand the role that nutrition plays in animal health and production. So that's me.
Well, thanks, and I'll put some mental notes in there of questions to make sure I feed to you for some discussion later.
Okay.
David, can we kind of hear from your journey and while you're, what brought you to Hoovie Pharma in your career today?
All right. Well, I thought I might just kind of start at the beginning. And I've had only 3 employers in my life, but like Dr. Bradley indicated, I've had probably dozens and dozens of roles within those employers. And I'll go, like I said, go back to the beginning. My first job in high school was scraping manure out from behind sows and throwing it in a manure spreader, and then spreading it on the field with a John Deere 60. So had a lot of fun doing that. I mean, just learned. Dr. Hough talked about continuous learning, and it doesn't take long to learn to spread manure on the field, but it does take a long time to learn to manage the farm, and that's the role that I ended up in on that. In the time in the 80s, a 600 sow farrow to finish operation, and so that experience actually running the farm and managing people is just invaluable in the rest of my career, and how I could always rely back on those experiences. It was almost interesting the number of times, at least starting after veterinary school. You can go to farms, talk to producers, and they'd say, "Well, you've never done this before," and it's like, "Well, let me show you how," because actually I've, even though first year out of veterinary school I'd done whatever it was, inject the animals or whatever, multiple 2 times more than some of the people I was working with. So it's just a lot of experience there. So I didn't go to. I was a non-traditional student, so I was working on and managing a at the time relatively large swine farm, and that's kind of what I wanted to do, or at least I thought what I wanted to do. And so I actually dropped out of school, or quit going to school. Fast forward a few years, I'd been managing the farm for a while, got married. My wife was pregnant with our first child, and all of a sudden it kind of reality hit me. And it was like, what am I going to do when I grow up? I can continue to do this, but I'd like to continue to grow and learn and do new things. And so I actually decided to go back and finish my animal science degree, University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Graduated from that while I was still managing the farm, got that degree, and then went on into vet school. And 4 years into vet school, 2 kids when I went into vet school and 4 when I came out. So there were a few things to do other than just study. And while in vet school, investigated all the different career possibilities that there were in veterinary medicine, whether it's R&D or mixed animal practice, or even a lot of opportunities even in doing kind of an adjunct to research on the human side. And I ended back up with swine medicine. I guess I was comfortable with it, but I also love working with the people that raise pigs. And so that's what I ended up doing. And as Dr. Bradley indicated, I took a job with Cargill. It wasn't what I had anticipated doing. When I got out of vet school, I figured I'd probably end up in a mixed animal practice or a swine-only practice. But with the family and the importance I put on my family, I decided that at that time in my career that was a better choice for me. They offered some benefits that were at the time a little more rare in a veterinary practice, paid vacation, things like that, and I definitely wanted to make sure I kept my priorities straight, and that's always been a focus of mine. It's maybe, but it's for sure difficult to do on a daily basis, but when you look long term, I consider the priorities first my faith, and then my family, and then my job or career. And so my job or career is to support my family, and so I don't want to ever ignore that. But then at Cargill, it's the live production side of the business, Cargill pork we called it at the time, and I started off just as a veterinarian doing farm calls. A little bit different because they were company-owned pigs, but still the working with the producers that raise the pigs and training them and educating them and having a similar goal that we would have in a private practice. Then I just had the opportunity to do more and more things. Ended up managing some farms for Cargill when they had some people left, and then some issues that needed to be solved, and then worked on the genetics side of the business for a little while. Managed sows. I was over sow production in the Midwest and even in North Carolina back in the day when Cargill had some sows out there. And then probably my most unique role I ever had was they gave me a title of business analyst because they didn't know what to call me. But it was when Cargill, being a large company, they merged the packing side of the business and the live production side of the business together. And really the role was to help each other, the live side understand packing and the packing side understand the live side, and obviously do some analytical work and some training to both teams to try to get them to play nice together, because the business had operated in silos for so long, and learned a tremendous amount about the packing side of the business in that role, and then went on in my later years with Cargill, starting up an R&D program, and then we had a nutritionist and a senior manager leave, and ended up doing nutrition, feed milling, and even merchandising, managing the supply chain for feed ingredients, and supervising that team, and even traded corn for a while, which was quite interesting. And so just being available and always doing, I guess, giving it your best and being available, willing to learn, and just digging in and learning. And that, I guess in some ways I had the opportunity to be willing to do that, but then that also fits my personality, just always wanting to learn more and serve in any way that I can. I did 7 years ago leave Cargill before they sold to JBS, but left them, and in some ways I love the advantages of the corporate world, but also struggled a little bit. Cargill just got really big and cumbersome and difficult to get some things done, and wanted to try back at a smaller company, which was Hubie Pharma. At the time, they were just getting started in their offering. Hubie Pharma, HU means it stands for human, VE stands for vet, and then pharmacy or pharmaceutical. Don't have any human products in the U.S., but it's a European-based company, and they really have animal health and nutrition products. And so, the animal health side, the veterinary side, the nutrition, the feed side, which I'd had a lot of experience in, and so just really saw a fit there. And the cool thing is I get to work with swine vets, swine producers, nutritionists, R&D folks all around the country, and just continue to learn and try to serve them in the best way possible. So that's a little bit about me. Casey, I hope that's what you're looking for.
Definitely, I think that's a good start. One of the topics I kind of wanted to touch base with because I knew both of you had a lot of on-farm experience and you've transitioned into more technical roles. So depending on what level of student we have here, we could have some undergraduates, some graduate students as well, and maybe some veterinarian students. I liked the comment, David, that you made. Let me show you how I can do that. I probably have more experience than you do because that's a memory I had from my undergraduate when the vet professors came out from vet school onto the farm and realized maybe that's not the right approach I wanted to take, and maybe they don't understand animals as much as I thought they did. So maybe both of you touch on how valuable it has been to have that farm experience in your careers and what value that brings to your current roles.
You want me to go first, Dr. Nolan? So, yeah, farm experience has been very beneficial to me. I think, you know, in a production animal role, you can sit in an office, right, and look at numbers and try to evaluate performance and make up these elaborate protocols for anything, but, you know, vaccination protocols or whatever. And then, but you got to go on the farm and see how applicable that really is. You know, there's only so many hours a day. You know, labor in the ag industry is really tight. You know, and do people understand the why of what they're doing? And so I think going on farms, touching, feeling, seeing what others are seeing, and kind of experiencing what's doable, what's you know, what you can or can't actually implement on the farm, I think is really critical in my previous role, and in addition to the role I'm in now. Just having that farm connection and knowing, you know, things that go on day to day, week to week, and the expectations has proven to be really helpful in a technical service position, because you've been there to where your clients have been, and you can help them sort through situations.
Yeah, I would add to Dr. Hough's comments. I totally agree. And kind of the takeaway I have in, you know, working with producers, and again, that's part of that's really what drew me to each of my jobs. I love working with the people who actually work with the pigs, and because I guess I see that there's maybe some, I can't think of the right word, but there's a little bit of deja vu in there, because, you know, I used to be, you know, I was the person that was doing the pigs. I actually, you know, working with them every day, processing, castrating, etc. You know, I'd love that work, and, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, what type of role you move into. There's never a job that's quote unquote beneath you. There's never an insignificant job, whether it's the guy doing the power washing, or the guy the guy or gal that's processing the pigs. I mean, those that's where the rubber hits the road. That's the, you know, where things happen, and just the fact, I don't know, the fact that I had the opportunity to do that, it just really helped me, I think, in my entire career, and no matter what role I'm in, even as a, you know, even when I was talking about being a business analyst, you know, so I was spent most of my time in an office, but yet, you know, relating back to the person actually doing the work, what is possible, what isn't possible, what are some of the hang-ups, what are some of the irritations. I remember one of the, we had a farm, and we all the employees, they were cargo employees on the farm, and all the employees were required to take a survey, and the pig farm, the employees, the working conditions scored extremely low, and a lot of the managers sitting around the table said, "Well, of course it did. It's a pig farm." It's like, no, that's not the right attitude. You got to, you know, we went to the farm and we asked the employees, you know, what could improve the working conditions, and it ended up being something so simple. the lighting in the barns was dim, and they felt like they were in a cave all day long. And we went in and put in new lights and new wiring, new lights, and the difference it made in just how the employees felt about coming to work and doing their job made a huge difference. So anyway, those are some of the things, and and it's not. I'll mention another system I work with. As a technical service veterinarian, I work with the Carthage system, a group of veterinarians out of Illinois. And I know as part of their training program for a lot of the new veterinarians they're bringing on, they're actually having those veterinarians, first year out of veterinary school, work in actually spend their entire first year working in farms, doing everything that the farm employees do, because they see the value in that as far as just being able to develop new talent, and because you always rely back, you always think back to when you used to do that job, and what what things went well and what the irritations were.
No,
I do
resounding.
that.
I would have to agree on all that. As I tell people, I think
Doctor,
that I would love to go back to power washing some days versus the job we do. So,
Dr. Nolan, we've got one question. So when, for example, when you're looking for a position on a farm to get experience, like, would you recommend a large facility or a small facility?
I would recommend a facility.
Period.
I really
It
would.
didn't really matter. Okay.
I don't. I've seen. Obviously, I've worked on both, and there's unique differences to both, but the processes are the same. You power wash on both facilities. You process pigs on both facilities. The small facility might have some advantages in that you get a broader exposure, meaning to all different departments and all the entire process. And that's one thing I love to be able to do. It's just kind of my personality. I want to understand how what I do affects others, and so, or how what one role does affects others. All those. Oftentimes we call them unintended consequences. I want this job, or this role to do this to improve productivity. Well, it might improve productivity in their section, but not improve it for other individuals or the next link in the chain. So, yeah, I'm changing my answer. Small facility probably give you, if you have limited time, or the small facility, if you are doing it for experience and you can convince your manager to move you around, the large facility would be just fine as well.
Okay. And Sara, since you were a production veterinarian for a good 8 years, can you tell us a bit more about the transition you had now that you're doing technical services for DSM? Like, how's
Right.
that been for you?
Yeah. So, my day-to-day is definitely a lot different. It was a lot of, I try to make plans and work through, big system situations, but there was also some firefighting day-to-day, sick pigs here, or situation here. And I missed that quite a bit. But now I'm more in control of my schedule, and I do get the phone calls from other veterinarians, requesting assistance with XYZ. But I guess I'm not directly responsible for that situation. So it's a little different. It's more of a long-term strategy in working with some clients versus some of those short-term instant gratification moments that maybe I received being a production veterinarian. But and like I mentioned, I have a lot to learn, and I still do. I mean, it's continual, education throughout your career in veterinary medicine. But with this role, trying to learn the lingo and talk to some of our clients and nutritionists about things that they're seeing, it's definitely been a steep learning curve. So it's kind of hopeful at a year in, I'd feel a little more comfortable with some of these conversations, but it's definitely taken longer than that. So just kind of a different day to day and different perspective than I had before.
How are you managing with the work-life balance? Like, I assume that, well, because of COVID, nobody's really traveling that much, but how is that? How are you transitioning with that, like with continuing education and then the change of pace in what you do?
Yeah, great question. So, and Dr. Nolan talked about work-life balance and definitely having children, change my perspective completely on that. And taking this role did allow us to move into a different school district, which when I initially looked for a house, when I started my career, my job, my initial job, school district, I didn't care. I wanted a house that was close to work. I wanted certain things, but schools really weren't on the radar. But now, that's something we talk about on a daily basis. So definitely allowed me to move into a different area that supports my kindergartner this year, although virtually, which has not been ideal. But it has allowed me to be more available when I'm home, and I'm able to assist and run the kids here and there or wherever. But it does come with travel. It's a trade-off. I definitely traveled in my previous position, and it was more of a directed, we need you here, we need you to do this. In this role, it's to times to arrive, or it kind of work on my own calendar, which has been nice. So yeah, it's definitely very different. Right now I'm taking courses, and so I'm online studying and doing stuff while I'm trying to help him with his online schoolwork. So like you mentioned, COVID kind of ruined all of my plans and how this would really play out. Working from home is not working from home alone. And so definitely having to prioritize things throughout the day, the week, the month, to make sure that I stay on task, he stays on task. We're all kind of doing what we need to be doing. But so it's been a challenge in that regard, but so far so good.
Would you both say that there's a difference? Like, for example, if like, let's say we had somebody that just, finished his DVM or PhD and was looking to start working in the industry, like which direction would you suggest they look at? Since you guys have both done both, the production side and technical services. And in Dr. Nolan's case, he's also done, research, a little marketing, milling even. Like, how would you guys advise somebody that was going to start out working in the industry with that?
Yeah, I can go first,
Long
Sarah.
pause.
And
I think we have the same opinion, but so I'll let him go first.
yeah, I can start. And can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yes,
Great.
we can.
I was making. I'm. The technical side of the mute button is something that I'm still trying to master. So, but how would I advise? In the technical service role that I'm in now, I don't feel I could be as productive without the prior experience. That's not to say that a new grad couldn't move into a technical service role. I think it'd be similar to how my entire career's been. You just gotta know that you have to get in. And you have to have the discipline to seek out and learning opportunities. I know some companies are better than others, but even the information that they think you need is not necessarily enough. You really have to dig in and learn. Just have an attitude that you're going to be continually learning for your entire career. And Dr. Hough, I know, can speak to that as she's back in school, which I don't think she ever imagined she would be. Even as I started my new role in in technical service, I reached out to other technical service veterinarians and just said, how do you deal with this? How do you, I signed up for the EVP program through the University of Illinois just to I guess develop those relationships with other technical service veterinarians, other production veterinarians. I had a lot of experience, but it was all in one system, and that's extremely valuable. But we used to joke, and those that have been at Cargill a long time, we used to say that our blood was now had now turned from red to green. We bled green, and we did, because we got so caught up in the way that we did things, and just that. So just wherever you're at, just seek every day to learn more, to just stretch yourself, learn something new. Dr. Hough?
Like, would you, for example, like recommend to individuals coming out of a grad or a DVM program who do not have live production experience, that they work in live production for 6 months or maybe a year before attempting to join an allied company in a technical role, or would that not be necessary?
I would actually recommend that. Yes, I would recommend that.
Okay.
For some individuals, it might not be a deal killer, but I think it just gives you so much more credibility and so much opportunity when you can relate to that, relate back to work you've actually done in the past.
Can I add
a
question?
It teaches you something else that is difficult to explain, but it just even gives you the right lingo, if you will. When you say processing pigs, I mean, some people don't know what processing pigs is.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Hough and I know what processing pigs is.
I don't know what processing pigs is, I'll be honest.
We won't go into that.
But can I add to that a little bit? Because I think Dr. Nolan and I share a little bit. We had a non-traditional education. You went back and finished your bachelor's degree and then went to vet school. I worked in production after my bachelor's degree. And then, of course, I managed a research farm while I went to graduate school. Trish asked afterwards, but can you set up, do you think it's willing to ask if they're looking at a PhD role that maybe that's where they take their break and, a year of production experience, or maybe even build that into some programs if they're not going to be a veterinarian.
Mm-hmm.
But even on the veterinarian side, Sara sounds like she had immense opportunities to go out and get practical experience while in school. Can you talk about those options, or where, that it's okay to take a year off or two? We're always in a rush, and maybe slowing down. I think that goes back to work-life balance. And I wish maybe somebody told me to slow down earlier in my career, but what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely think, this is your career, and you need to have time to build your network and learn whatever you need to do to be successful. So yeah, I wish somebody would have told me that too. You don't have to do things in a certain order to get where you want to be. But I rely on my network daily. If I didn't, I would be completely burnt out at this point, right? 9 years out. If I didn't call on different folks, I've talked to Dr. Nolan plenty of times, help me, what's going on? What is this? And so I'm very familiar with a lot of different people in the industry. I've met them over the years and reached out to them because, everybody knows a little something that can help you with whatever situation you're in. But I will comment back to you, right out of school, doing a technical role, there were some opportunities when I graduated, and I called up one of my network friends and said, what do you think about this? And he said, Sara, you don't know anything about any of their products. You've never used them. Why would I call you to see what your opinion is, or listen to what you have to say about this vaccine when you all you know, you've read as much as I have on it. You've never physically used it or made a decision about it, or even diagnosed, the situation. So I think production experience is invaluable and should be done, whether that's after you graduate as part of your first job post graduation, or within your program, or even like Casey mentioned, take some time off, develop yourself.
Would there be long-term financial payoffs to having practical farm experience, like more money or faster advancement? And this goes to both Dr. Nolan and to Sara as well. Like, how do you guys view this? And if there are advancements, what has that been in your career?
There's no question in my career, the experience I gathered, working on and managing the pig farm. That's kind of why I started out with, scooping straw out from behind sows. I mean, and spreading it on the field with the under 60. That's there's a little reminiscing in that, but it's also that type of experience and just has, I think, made me a bit more valuable employee to my employer, and it has definitely advanced my career, and I think it advanced it and advanced it faster. Could I have? Is there a guarantee? No, but as long as you, I think as long as as you serve others, you're always remembering back to that experience, and it helps you make better decisions that
Right.
that actually make sense, that make a difference, and better recommendations, better decisions, depending on what position you're in. But I think there is a long-term payoff to that.
I agree.
How has that been different for you, Sara, from moving? Well, like, okay, like let's be honest, the allied side does pay better sometimes.
Yes, typically.
I would
They
But they
say,
do.
pay for that experience. I mean, that was a
Yes,
requirement
exactly.
for this position, was to have 5 years or more experience. So
Right.
they want someone that, because I am customer facing, right? That can
Yes.
relate to customers. And the only way to do that is to have that experience. So yeah, I would not have this position currently without that.
Without the production experience.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the same here.
I would say, as I just to touch on that a little bit, I think that's the struggle of new graduates. How do they get out there and get experience and get roles? But I can just speak from my career if we want to just talk income levels, and I'm not going to give away my first job with my bachelor's degree. I made $22,500 a year working in production, and I took a lower pay because I wanted that experience where we talked about small versus large. I grew up on a small hog farm, and I wanted to experience the biggest I could. So I went to work for New Fashion Pork, and maybe not made the best money. Definitely, it was a tough decision moving 24 hours away from my family and everything I had, but it taught me a lot. So I think that goes into getting the experience. But as David mentioned, he only knew one system through cargo, and he bled green. And I think sometimes we have to sacrifice either temporarily living in a place we don't want to live in, taking a salary we don't want to take to better our careers, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So, kind of making those decisions and being successful. So I went, from a very basic production manager trainee program to, now I'm making 6 figures plus, traveling the world, on usually paid by companies, and getting to have experiences I never thought I would have. I never thought I'd get off the hog farm. I wanted to be a production manager all my life, but it's gone beyond that money and that role of, but yet you have to pay the price. And I think sometimes I read a lot of scholarship applications from students and all this stuff they've done in their undergraduate, and I'm like, slow down a little bit, enjoy life, go get some real good experience. But they're rushing for that end of my PhD. I want to be a professor or tech service manager. I'm rushing into things. And I think, if I would have slowed down even more when I was younger, I have invaluable experiences, but maybe I would have chose a different path, I guess. And so, hindsight's always better, but my feedback.
Is there anything you guys would have done differently?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you know, I will emphasize the network thing again. I think the only reason I've had the career I've had is because of who I knew, who I worked with, and not what I know. It's the attitude you have. So, coming out of school, you feel like you know all these different things and you want to go apply them, right? You want to go and diagnose and do this and that. But it really comes back to people, because even in veterinary medicine, every animal you touch, there's a person attached to it. And a lot of people go to vet school, they're like, I like animals.
Right.
I don't want to have to deal with people. But people are just part of the equation. And so, knowing people, learning people, meeting people, like the various veterinarians that I've worked with, and they know others, and they hear about your work ethic or how you do certain things, and not necessarily about all the different, what you made in bacteriology, your second year of vet school. That whole network piece is super important. And I'm very glad that I took that seriously. And I took my rotation seriously, and I reached out and tried to, I was part of the student chapter of the AASV, very involved, did presentations at the meetings, and really expanded my network through that organization. And that's how I've landed my jobs, as people that we know, and how you've treated them and how you've interacted with them. So just keep that in mind all on the way, because you never know who's going to give you your break.
Is there an advantage to including, for example, or putting on a resume, small hobby farms of 50 animals, even if she's had additional production experience? So we have a question from a dairy science PhD student with work experience on research farms and then a few other family farms. So the question that she has is, would it be advantageous for them to add that to their resume? Like, is that something that you would look at as a hiring manager, for example?
Put it
I
all.
would say yes. I would say yes. There's a whole difference taking care of your own animals versus taking care of someone else's, or someone else's. Even though we talk a lot about experience, you go to work and somebody says, you got a routine. Go take care, go feed the sows, go process pigs, go whatever. When it's your own, you get out of bed, you do that, you take, you have ownership in that. I would say absolutely, and it shows. I guess it shows a love for animals, a love for production agriculture. I live on a really, I own 15 acres, and run goats on about 5 acres. And so we got about 20 is all. But it's still something I do for a hobby today. And by golly, they get fed every day, twice a day. Well, no, they get fed every day. Once a day.
And I was going to say,
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, usually some of those hobby farms come with 4-H and FFA, and I think you add those into it, and if you participated in that, or if you're an entrepreneur and you're just selling eggs, those are valuable skills to showcase, even if it's a hobby farm. And because you have leadership roles, you have, taking care of your own animals, it's about having responsibility, and you're going to be there every day, something depending on you. That's a trait to have. but also try to convey that I just don't have a hobby farm, but this is, try those attributes that leadership is looking for in new hires as well. Sara, do you want to add?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it gives you a different perspective. Like you mentioned, like just listing all those things. Maybe not just saying I have a hobby farm, right? But listing those things. We all come up with different synonyms and stuff in our CVs, right? For different things, right? No, we don't bleed pigs. We make it some fancy collection, of samples or whatever. But I think you could definitely include that and word it that just shows some different attributes that maybe another candidate might not have.
What other outside organizations or networks would you kind of recommend for them to be more active in?
Yeah, I mean, I've already mentioned AASV for the veterinary side.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah, I think
animal science groups, I've been to a few different meetings. Of course, I'm new to this industry, so I'll let Dr. Nolan speak on those.
Yeah, I definitely think the area that you're seeking, that you would seek out and become involved in those organizations, like Dr. Hough said, the AASB or the Animal Science Association, I think is what it's called, ASA. But and there's other organizations as well that, depending on your interest, I mean, seek them out. Learn. It's part of learning. Just remember, I talked about that a lot. Just learn as much as you can and make those connections. NIAA was something I was fairly involved in, National Institute of Animal and Agriculture, early on in my career, and really enjoyed that and met a lot of people and still definitely follow that organization. And there's others as well, just depending on where your area of interest is.
I'm going to put a little plug in here for Targeting Excellence, because I think Dr. Nolan and Dr. Huff's both participated in those events. It's not just swine related, but Targeting Excellence is a great exposure. It doesn't take a lot of time to go do a gun shoot, clay pigeon type shoot, but it's also a scholarship program. But events like that, and there's golf outings at different universities depending on where you are, that bring the industry together. So if you can participate in different things like that, the social networking part of it to meet people, I think is invaluable as well, of just maybe time commitment or something for your resume, but going out there and actually talking to people in the industry. Either that's the pork producers, events, whatever area you're in. So
what I've found, I wanted to add to that, Casey. What I've found is those of us who've spent a number of years in our careers, and it doesn't have to be as many as me, but we love to see new folks growing and developing and have an interest in the same thing that we're doing. And I've seen just 99% of the professionals I work with go out of their way to welcome new talent, to engage them, to just try to get to know them better.
Thus, we're on Coffee and Careers.
Exactly.
Yep.
Trish, any last minute questions?
We have one more. So as a farm owner of close to 1,000 birds, how would I share my on-farm observations and hypotheses in order to enhance my network and career prospects?
Dan, from your role, would you have a good way of kind
I'm
of?
sorry, I didn't quite catch that. I was typing a note to you.
So I think this was a question that you had, size of farm, small or large. This young man wants to know, he has 1,000 bird operation. How does he use that to help his resume and career? How does he word that to help grow his career, have better opportunities in his career.
Okay. I agree wholeheartedly with what David was talking about earlier, where large farm or small farm operation, whatever. What I add to that is you want to make sure you're going to work for an organization that has high quality procedures. That not that you're just learning it or doing it, but you're learning to do it the right way. So if I have 1,000 birds and you want to strengthen this, I would make sure I was doing it the right way. If you can get certified by this, or if you can have recommendations by your veterinarian, by your nutritionist, who say this person is doing this the right way, that will help. Put those comments in a sidebar on your resume if you have to. Put them on your LinkedIn profile. Put them in your cover letter. That I have this, I'm doing it this way, I'm getting this kind of performance. Okay? If you're getting record level performance or industry standard performance at 1,000 birds, that's great. If it's a hobby farm and you're not getting great performance, then it's not going to be as attractive. So talk about the performance you're getting, talk about get recommendations, talk about certifications that you've had.
And if it's a hobby farm, you definitely talk about, your skills that you've learned in running that farm. But yeah, I agree with Dan completely.
Any other questions, feedback? I mean, we got 6 minutes, so I'm going to ask some tough questions.
Okay, so you did mention to us prior to this, maybe talking about working together with other folks in the industry or within your organization. So I thought I'd just touch on that because I do believe there's kind of a stigma, right? Veterinarian, nutritionist, one's right, one's not. So it goes back to that going on the farm together, spending time together, seeing things from each other's perspectives. Because at the end of the day, in a production system, you of course all work under this least cost umbrella, but you're a team. You've got to make it work. And the best thing to do is go out and see things together, discuss things together. And one thing I have learned is people really don't like change they didn't help create, right? So in a production system, if you're changing a way of they're doing something on the farm, have some different people involved that are on the farm, that manage people on the farm and come to a conclusion together. It's more likely to get implemented correctly if you have some, all the perspectives together and make a decision collectively. You just can't just shut things off and say, this is my sandbox, right? We all have to play in the sandbox together. So it's taken a long time to realize that and work through that. But again, it all comes back to people and how treat people how you want to be treated and to work as a team, because that's the expectation.
I love that. And I think that goes to David can touch on silos and kind of from his experience breaking down silos, I think you mentioned earlier.
Oh, absolutely. I tease people. The reason I left Cargill was because I was a veterinarian responsible for nutrition, and I used to do genetics, so I had to leave because I ran out of people to blame.
You're pointing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I ran folks to blame, but yeah, absolutely. Sarah, in your new role, you see obviously how intertwined nutrition and health is, and there's no question about that. But it's more than just that. Accounting, accounting can has objectives that sometimes can really mess with production, and especially if they don't understand production. And in my role at Cargill, I trained like three different controllers that came into our business. I didn't train them a single thing on accounting. I trained them on how some of their principles, how some of the things they looked at, the numbers they looked at, interacted with production. Yeah, there wasn't anything I could teach them on accounting because they had the degrees, they had the CPAs, but just understanding how all the pieces work together, it makes a world of difference. We didn't need an accountant calling up the feed mill and complaining about how much shrink the feed mill had if our goal was to send out drier feed than we received, because we were more worried about shipping calories to the farm than pounds of feed, just as one example. Now, obviously that was an issue if somebody was hauling the corn off in the back of their trunk of their car or something like that. But if all we were doing was and we needed to audit that, but if all we were doing was drying the feed more, a completely different mindset than, looking at a computer screen saying that they lost so many pounds of feed, so they lost so many dollars during a month or during a period. They didn't lose money. They actually made money because they didn't pay to haul water to the farm in the specific example I'm giving. So anyway, so that's breaking down those silos and understanding how your work affects everybody else is so important. Just trying to get an understanding of the big picture.
Okay. Well, Dr. Nolan, Dr. Sara Hough, thank you for being our guest speakers for today. We really appreciate you supporting us on Coffee and Careers. So we'd like to say thank you. And also, we'd like to give a special shout out and thanks as well to Dr. Rob Musser of NutriQuest and Kim Livingston with Elanco. They've also been such great supporters of Coffee and Careers, and Casey and I would like to recognize them both for this support as well, and also for the participation. So hopefully on the next session that we have, we won't encounter such technical difficulties since we'll be moving to a better platform. So our upgrade from this previous in the previous Zoom sessions that we have is actually courtesy of Gestal. Gestal is an equipment manufacturing company that manufactures the original wireless standalone swine feeding systems. So they're not just equipment manufacturers, but a family of pork production or pork producers who have been doing pork production for a while. And their systems are designed by pork producers for pork producers. So
Thanks.
thank you, Gestal.
Yeah, and Trish, Dan wanted me to mention our next session. Some of the feedback we had from our pilot program is they wanted to hear from professionals that aren't so seasoned and maybe have been out on their own for, maybe 3 to 5 years. So the next set of speakers we have is going to be more of a roundtable type setting. We're going to have 3 to 4 young technical service R&D type of people joining us, some that's moved across the world for their careers, some that have stayed here in Indiana, for example, but we're going to have a younger group or a younger, professional group coming in to talking about their roles, how, the transition happened. And I think it'll be enjoyable to hear from the younger generation of technical service managers and things out there about, their career transition and their learning curve as they've gotten started. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll see you guys soon, hopefully in person.
Take care.
Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Bye.